What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Creating Wealth Podcast, where I, Kyle, from Kyle Curtin Real Estate, interview local top dogs in the real estate investing, wealth building, and personal finance industries. Let's build together. What's up, guys? This episode of the podcast was super fun to do with a really cool guest. Barry has such an amazing story, from his humble beginnings in a 200-person town in Wales, England, to his very impressive performing career in the WWE and Cirque du Soleil, to building a crazy real estate portfolio and hosting his own 150-plus episode real estate investing podcast. In this episode, Barry gets into a ton of very valuable topics, from the great risk of following tradition, properly screening contractors, and the power of relationships. There are so many helpful tips to learn in this episode, and I hope you enjoy. Let's jump right into the episode. Welcome to episode 24 of the Creating Wealth Podcast. Today, I have the great pleasure of interviewing a very special guest and former WWE wrestler, Barri Griffiths. Barry is a former professional wrestler turned real estate investor, host of his real estate podcast called Wrestling with Real Estate, and Cirque du Soleil performer. Barry, what is going on, my man? How are you?
What's going? Yeah, good, man. Thanks for having me on the show, and good job reading out the introduction we were saying earlier, man. I don't do that myself because I always mess it up. So anyone who does that, they've got my instant respect. So cool, man. Yeah, excited. I had you on my show, so I'm excited to be on your show. I'm still trying to decide which side of the mic I prefer to be. I don't know about you, but I like both. Depends what kind of mood I'm in, I guess. Sometimes it's nice to just ask the questions, and sometimes it's nice to not have to worry about the questions. So.
Yeah, the pleasure is definitely all mine, man. I love talking to you, man. It's awesome. I think I honestly like being on kind of the interviewee side. I've only been on your podcast, but it was so much fun, man. You know, because I've never been on that side of the equation before, you know. So
yeah,
it's nice to kind of turn the tables a little bit.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
Yeah. We'll jump right in, my man, and get going. So,
okay,
what kind of got you into real estate? And what's your backstory? Like, what gave you the real estate investing bug, so to say?
Yeah, obviously I've been asked this quite a few times and trying to figure it out even myself, right? Even to this point, I haven't fully figured it out. So there was a few things. So for one, I'm originally from Wales in the UK, but my family's business was in sort of, I don't want to say the construction business because it'll give people the wrong impression, but they owned a local carpentry / mini construction business back home in my tiny little town where I lived. There was 200 people lived there, so gives you an idea. It can't be that big a company, right? But my great granddad started this business and then passed it on to my granddad, then passed it on to my dad, and I worked there for a bit. But I remember growing up, my granddad built like a triplex in the local area, like in the local little town. So I remember being there around that, and then my dad and his brother then built another triplex. So I remember being involved with that. So I think somewhere in there that there was that, but I never had too much of an interest in that construction side in terms of working it myself. I worked as a carpenter, but I was the world's worst carpenter. I just hated it. I just never want, you know, in this small little town, there wasn't too many options for employment and stuff. So I just ended up working for my dad because it was like, all right, well, what should I do? Oh, I guess I'll work for my dad, you know?
Yeah.
So I ended up doing something I really didn't want to do, and that led to me to wrestling and Cirque du Soleil and everything. I'm moving to the USA and living in Las Vegas right now. But so that kind of planted a seed, I think. I think being around that my entire life, and the house that we grew up in, they bought that and, you know, took it down to the studs and redid that. And I remember being around that and that kind of stuff. So I think being around it gave me that somewhat of an interest in it, because, you know, being on building sites now, I like that. I enjoy doing the renovation stuff. And I say enjoy doing, I mean, I enjoy paying someone else to do it for me. All right. It's my project, my property, but I'm not doing any of this hammer swinging or anything like that myself. So there was that aspect. And then also what happened in 2014, I bought a house in January of 2014. And then in April of 2014, my career with WWE kind of came to an end. And all of a sudden I've got a house that I paid $435,000 for. And I'm a wrestler in another country and I don't have too many other skill sets. And I'm like, okay, I got a $2,600 monthly payment now, a mortgage payment. What do I do? You know, so I was kind of scrambling and ended up renting out that property because I didn't want to sell that property. So those things combined kind of, I think, brought me to real estate. And then obviously, ended up reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, like everyone else, and going to bigger pockets and sort of just understanding, the possibilities with real estate and the options out there with real estate just kind of blew me away. And I was like, this was even in the beginning stages. And at this point, I realized there's so much options out there for real estate and for creating wealth and for creating the life that you want for yourself. I just fell in love, and I'm obsessed. I wake up in the morning thinking about real estate, and I go to bed thinking about real estate, and I dream about real estate, I think, as well, to be honest. Some nights I can't fit asleep because I'm thinking about real estate. So yeah, it's cool. It's exciting. I think for me, I just love it, to be honest.
That's really incredible, man. It's really easy to slip into that kind of mentality of literally just thinking about real estate like 24/7. And it's not necessarily a bad thing unless you can't sleep, then it's not so good. But yeah, that's really incredible, man. What was it like, I guess, kind of growing up, in a town that small? Like, I can't even like picture it. You know what I mean? Like, does everybody kind of know everybody? I know it's a little off track, but
no. Yeah, no, definitely. That's exactly how it is, especially being the son of a prominent business, company. Like the company was called Pritchard and Griffiths. So I'm Griffiths, my family's Griffiths, but my great granddad started the business with a guy called don't know his first name, something Pritchard, but he died and didn't have any kids. So my granddad bought his side of the business, but they kept the name Pritchard and Griffiths. So I was always Pritchard and Griffiths' son growing up. So if there was 5 of us going anywhere and being kids and smashing windows or playing, knock knock run or whatever you guys call it here, anything like that, right? People would always recognize me, and they would always enjoy telling my dad about how they saw his son. So I would always and my other friends would, nobody would, not that they wouldn't care, they just didn't know who they were or whatever. So that was always a pain in the ass growing up. You could never get away with anything. And yeah, everyone definitely. So, being older, it's nicer when I go home now because everyone knows each other and you have that friendly family vibe there. Because, living in Las Vegas, you barely know your neighbors here, right? I've lived 3 or 4 different places here in Vegas, and you barely even know your neighbors here. So it's really strange. So yeah, everyone definitely knows everyone. And, everyone goes to the pub and socializes there. And, so it's cool.
Wow. That's incredible, man. That's really crazy. What is kind of your drive and your vision for the long term? What's your fire?
Well, I think to start off with, going back, you asked me what was it like growing up in that town. I think the drive to do everything that I've done, so move to another country, wrestle to WWE, work for Cirque du Soleil, be in real estate now, comes from wanting more from growing up in a smaller town. So I mentioned the good things, right? Everyone kind of knows each other and is very friendly. Everyone's very genuine and great, fantastic people and all that stuff. But there's not a lot going on in the town where there's 200 people living there, right? You have a fish and chip shop, you have a post office, you have a grocery store, you have some pubs, you have my dad's business, and that's about it, right? There's not a whole lot else going on there. Not in terms of excitement, not in terms of employment, not in terms of options, right? Because you imagine, even if you have the best business idea in the world and you try and start a business there, it's going to be very challenging for you to make money, right? Because you have 200 people that live there, right? How much, there's always going to be a ceiling to what you can kind of achieve. So I always had that drive to want more and do more, I guess, with my life than what everyone else was doing there. And I'm not knocking them, if that's your choice and that's what you want to do, that's fine, right? I think everyone has the choice to do whatever. This was my choice and I always wanted more. So I think I have that drive still to even though I'm living in Las Vegas, my life is pretty cool right now, to kind of still do more with my life.
Yeah.
But I think also my ultimate goal is to have that financial freedom like everyone else, right? But financial freedom is a phrase that's thrown around all the time, right? What does financial freedom even mean? To me, it means being able to do what I want when I want. And I don't mean go buy a Ferrari if I want to buy a Ferrari. I don't like, that's not what I mean. I mean, if I want to go on vacation and it's, I want to go traveling, or if I want to go to my son's soccer, baseball, basketball game, whatever it is, spend time with that. If I don't feel like working today, I don't want to, you know what I mean? That's the financial freedom part to me, more than any dollar amount that you can kind of put on it, and I have a dollar amount that I've put on it because that to me equates to that freedom, but it's not the monetary amount to me. So that's my fire. And to just sort of, I'm 39 now, right? I'm crazy that I'm that much older than you because I don't feel it, but I guess I am. You're 20. That's a big gap, but it's realizing that life is short, man. It's like Jesus Christ, I'm 39. Like, how did this happen? You know what I mean? I'm 40 next. I remember looking at people being 40 like they were ancient. You know what I mean? It was like, maybe you do too. Maybe you think, my God, 40 is so old, right? But I remember thinking that, and here I am now, and in the blink of an eye, it's happened. And you talk to people, and you listen to people, and you realize, like, even someone that's 80 years of age, right? Their life, like, is a flash before them, right? It's just happened that quick. Speaking to someone the other day that was 55, and they're like, I have no idea how I'm 55. And like, it's like life is so short, and I really believe that you gotta, like, do as much as you can with it, right? And that can be so many things to so many different people, but it's just, you gotta make sure the most of your time here, because it really is a short amount of time.
You really do, man. You're totally right. Life is way too short, and it's really crazy, like, how fast time moves. And I feel like you just kind of, like, if you're working at a job or whatever, you just kind of, like, lose sight and, like, just get through the week, get through the month, and then a year goes by, 5 years goes by, 10 years goes by, and you're like, wow, like, how did that happen? Like,
I've done that. Like I said, when I worked for my dad, Monday to Friday was just like, let's get through this. It's like, just suffer through this and get to Friday. And, obviously this was when I was much younger, you'd be Friday, Saturday, Sunday out in the pub, even Thursday, sometimes Wednesdays, just trying to, I don't want to say no, because I wasn't an alcoholic or anything like that, but trying to have some kind of fun, because everything else isn't fun, and that's, like you said, you waste years of your life just going through it, and a year wasted of your life is just terrible. And if you waste, 4 or 5, a decade, like, it's just no good. And I've been there, man. And it's just, I guess that probably drives me as well, is to not have that, right? It's like that Sunday night feeling when you're like, oh God, I got to go to work tomorrow. It's kind of like being back in school, right? Oh God, I got to go to school tomorrow. And it's no way to live life, because there is another way to live it, right? And it might not come tomorrow or in the next year, but that's why we're on this path, I think, right? It's probably similar to me, is to, create that life that's, amazing, that's just really cool. And the cool thing is, as well, for real estate, for me, is more than anything, another reason why I love real estate is that you can create whatever life you want for yourself, man. It's just nuts, right? You can do whatever you want and like create whatever life you want for yourself through real estate. You want to be flipping 1,000 homes a year. I'm exaggerating. I don't think anyone's doing that. Maybe there's a company out there, but you know what I mean? You could be doing that, right? You could be working 12 hours a day and doing that and creating so much money. Or you might be like, well, I want to work 2 or 3 hours a month and travel and do whatever. And you can do that as well, right? You can create whatever life you want for yourself. And you can start from nothing in real estate. You can literally start from nothing. People start with debt. People start with hundreds of thousands of dollars of student debt, credit card debt. And then in a few years, 4 or 5 years, they're millionaires.
Yep.
How else can you do that? You can't do that in the stock market. It's very hard to do that in business because you always need money.
Yeah.
But in real estate, you literally can't do that, right? And obviously, it's not the norm, but it's not that rare either. It's not like a unicorn, right? That's just one in every million person does it, right? It's not the lottery. There's a ton of people doing it, and anyone listening to this can do it. And I think that's just mind-blowing when you really think about that, right? I can literally start with $100,000 in debt, and in 5 years' time, I can be a millionaire. And that's very realistic. Like, that's, for anyone listening, it's like, oh yeah, right, okay. Yeah, there's one guy that did it one time. No, there's hundreds of stories like that. All you have to do is go on Bigger Pockets, or, start, listening to different podcasts, and you'll hear it. I've talked to plenty of people that have done it.
Exactly. It's so true, man. It really is. And to your point, I mean, even like people around us, have done it. And even like hopping on Bigger Pockets or LinkedIn or something, typing in like the area that you're in and like reaching out to some of these investors like around you. Like, one, you'll be very, very surprised at how many investors that you could be like living right next door to someone who's got like, 50 units, you know what I mean? And like, it's like these people are around us, and you're totally right. And especially to be able to start off with like, low down payment loans, and like, like you don't have to slide in with 20%. I know that's kind of, something that floats around a little bit, but like it's not true. You know what I mean? Like it's it's really crazy. And even like to your point of like just boiling it down. Like what would it take for you to be a millionaire and how long do you want to do it? And then you can, like make your calculations and divide it and, kind of like prorate it. Be like, "Oh, I need this much cash flow by, 2 years from now. And then 5 years from now I need this much." Or, you know what I mean? Like or add up, take your wage what is it? Like all the money you make in a month, like your yeah, like your gross in a month or whatever, and figure out how to make the same amount with cash flow from real estate. Or, if you're more on the equity perspective, like, what would it take to be able to like refinance the money out and use that as a down payment for another one? And then like you literally just rinse and repeat over and over. Like, I feel like the game is just kind of like taking your goal and like just boiling the heck out of it,
Yeah.
and like
I,
it's totally possible.
it's so possible, yeah. And I think like you bring up a good point there is like figure out what your goal is, right, and kind of reverse engineer from there.
Yeah.
And also, like you said, so many people think that investing in real estate is either flipping or, like you said, you go on the MLS and you buy with 20% down, right? Because the reaction I get so many times, and one of the reasons I wanted to start my podcast was that the people in the circles around me were so clueless to what is out there, and it's not their fault. It's not
No.
common knowledge, a lot of this stuff, right? But
Yeah.
once you really dive into real estate, you realize there's so many different strategies out there that you can employ, that you don't need all the money in the world, that you can kind of again design the real estate investment to suit what you're trying to achieve, right? Whatever you're trying to achieve, if it's to have $1 million in the bank in 5 years, or if it's to have a certain amount of cash flow, or if it's to have a certain amount of units, or if it's to do a certain amount of deals, you can kind of engineer that through your real estate career, right? And it's just really cool because there's so many different things. You can wholesale, you can flip, you can you can do multifamily, you can do single family buy and holds, you can buy notes, you can be a private lender, you can, there's so many different things. You can invest in commercial properties, in office, in retail, in industrial, there's so many different options out there for everyone. And I'm just skimming the surface there of the actual different niches out there. But it's so true what you say is that you don't need 20% down. You don't have to buy through the MLS. You don't have to flip properties, right? There's something for everyone, right? There's something for everyone for your skill set and for what you're trying to achieve. And it's just really cool to me.
It really is, man. I love that so much. That I feel like that's what kind of makes real estate like obsessive is like there's so many different things that you can do. Like it's crazy, man. I mean, you talk to one person who's doing like, short-term rentals and like he's crushing it. You talk to, somebody else that's doing like, 8 to 10 flips a year. He's crushing it. Like everybody's completely on like different sides of the spectrum. And it's like, all right, you want to do something with this industry, like just have conversations with these people and see kind of like, what portion of real estate might be, I guess, like the most like would tailor to your needs the most, I guess you could say. And like
100%.
if you don't like one area, all right, whatever, just try something else. Like you said, there's like a million different avenues with real estate investing. It's truly insane. And
Yeah.
everybody can reap the rewards. It's incredible.
And the unfortunate thing is sometimes I think people get caught up in the excuses
Yeah.
of why real estate is not right. It's risky. It's you don't only deal with tenants. I heard that on forums before, but I've actually heard people tell me that I don't want to deal with toilets at midnight on a Saturday night. I just don't want to deal with that. And I'm like, I didn't
Classic.
realize that was an actual thing. I thought that was like a metaphor for what people kind of think and the way they talk. No, people actually say those actual words. I don't want to deal with a tenant, broken toilet on a Saturday night at midnight. I'm like, okay, cool. But the thing is, and I would challenge anyone who's on this, who's listening to this, who says it's risky, who say they don't want to deal with that, right? Okay, but the cost of doing those things, even if, and I've never done this myself, even if I had to fix a toilet at midnight on Saturday night, that's so much less to pay than living this life of being ordinary and not improving your life and not having a better life for you, yourself, your family, your kids, your parents, friends, everyone, showing them that this is, there's so much more that goes into real estate that people realize that the benefits of it. But also the thing of risk drives me crazy. Like, okay, you work in a job, like you said, right? Monday to Friday, a job you absolutely hate. You're working 8, 9, 10 hours a day. You get 1 week off a year, right? You've got to rely on that company to keep providing for you for the next 40 years. And then hopefully you'll retire. And then when you retire, hopefully the stock market's done well enough for you that you put enough away that you can live the next 30 years, maybe 20 years, whatever, with a set amount that you can spend every year. And if you go over that, and if you outlive what your expectations are, you have no money.
Yep.
Like that's not risky, but real estate is. Like, real estate's risky. Come on. Real estate is like any investment. There's risk, of course. I'm not saying it's not risky, but there's way more risk when you boil it down to just living that ordinary life of relying on one company to provide for you, to have enough money in retirement, for the stock market to be okay, and for them to be, like, ask people in 2008 and 2009 who are getting ready to retire, right? What they think of that system, right? They worked their asses off for 30, 40 years, saved as much as they could, put as much as they could in their 401k or whatever it is, their retirement account, and then bam, they just got killed by the 2008, 2009 recession. And ask them how risky it is to kind of rely on that, right? So yeah, there's so many misconceptions, but I think the problem is a lot of people aren't willing to do what's hard, right? It's easy for us. Our brain is programmed like that to protect our own ego, right? Even if the most normal person has some kind of ego. Mm-hmm. And I think what it is that these excuses protect your ego, right? So then if you don't do it, there's a reason behind it. Oh, it's too risky, I don't do it. It's not that you're too lazy or unmotivated or unwilling to do the work or unwilling to sacrifice or unwilling to do what other people are. It's just that it's too risky, and that's easier for us to chew and to sit with than all the other things. And I think that's what a lot of that stuff comes down to. But I challenge anyone who's on here to not think of real estate as negative, because another thing you'll hear as well is, and you've probably heard this, is like, you speak to someone who's never invested in real estate once, right? And they'll say, oh yeah, real estate's so risky. Oh, I had an uncle who had 2 properties and they lost them and the tenants trashed the place, and it cost them so much money. Oh, I never want to go through that. And then you're like, oh yeah, that is pretty bad. But then you're like, oh, so what happened? Like, did your uncle have a property management company that turned on him? Or like, no, he had a niece that he put in one of the properties and he didn't like check her, and then she stopped paying and he just let her not pay, and then he tried to evict her, and then she trashed the place, and then now that okay, so he didn't screen the tenant at all, he just put anyone in there. Yeah. And then what happened with the other one? Oh, it was a property out of state and he just relied on the tenant to take care of the place. And the tenant, like, it usually comes down to a bad owner, a bad real estate investor, right? It's someone that didn't do what they should have done, right? That's what it almost always comes back to. And there are instances, of course, in real estate where stuff goes wrong and everyone did everything right. Of course, that happens. But 99% of the time, when you hear someone say that real estate is bad and it's risky and, oh, they could never do it because so-and-so happens, I challenge anyone, next time you hear that, ask them about the full story. Don't just take it on the surface. Ask them about the full story, and you'll find out. I bet you that person who managed that properly made some mistakes that could end up costing them. So
that's brilliant, man. That really is brilliant. Because it's really tough to hear that from people. Because I mean,
you've heard it too, right? You've heard it too, right?
100%.
Yeah.
From people very, very close to me, which makes me a little nervous. But
right, always dive deeper. Always dive deeper, and almost always it could have been avoided. Almost always.
It's crazy, man. See, like, just out of curiosity, like, do you think that you've ever talked to anybody that has told you like stories like that? And that, or I'm trying to figure out how to word this. I have the thought in my head, but let me see.
Play it out, and then I'll probably be able to pick up.
Okay, all right. So anybody who actually, has like a multifamily or a single family that they're renting out or whatever, that had like a really big issue with a tenant or something, and then literally just like cleaned their hands and left the game, you know, like, and just never wanted anything to do with it ever again.
Yeah,
Like,
no, I've not had that. No, I don't think I've heard of that,
I
because I
don't think
think
I
also,
have.
yeah, because I think what happens is anyone that would do that
Yep.
is someone that wasn't that interested in the first place, which probably also led to them having that problem.
Yeah.
So if you don't have that resolve and that grit and that determination to see it through, and that, I guess, the ultimate goal as well, right? You asked me earlier, what is my ultimate goal with real estate? Unless you have that and the vision for what real estate is, there is going to be testing times. I'm not saying everyone's going to buy as much properties as they want. There's never going to be an issue. It's going to be smooth sailing. No, I've had plenty of issues, right? And I haven't been investing that long, and I don't have 10 million units. But I also know I would rather have any of these problems than not be in real estate, right? These are good problems to have if you're going to have a problem. I own a piece of real estate. The tenant trashed the place, or the toilet's broken on a Saturday night, right? Or whatever it is,
Yep.
right? And it's an okay problem to have. It's not great at the time, but you're in real estate. You own a piece of real estate. You're bettering your life. Those around you are benefiting. My wife, my son are benefiting from it as well. And it's essentially a small problem to have, and it seems like a big deal at the time, but it really isn't when you consider that. So I think anyone who had a problem and was like, okay, I'm out of real estate, weren't that vested in real estate, weren't doing things the right way because they weren't that interested in it, which usually led to that problem, I would imagine, which then led them to be like, okay, real estate, this is what everyone told me about real estate, and this is why I'm never doing it again. When in reality, it shouldn't that happen. But I've had plenty of horror stories. There's plenty of people that have horror stories, right? And they did everything right, and it's going to happen.
Mhm.
But they were able to respond, figure it out, find a solution, and then chalk that up to a learning experience, and then which leads them to even more success.
Yep. Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. It's really crazy. Yeah, definitely I feel like, kind of having that I guess like that dream and that goal, I guess that fire, just to keep pushing through, all the BS that's going to come along and stuff. Because I mean, I feel like you can look at it like, if you were fixing that broken toilet on a Saturday night at midnight, I mean, yeah, it could be terrible. There could be like 3 feet of snow on the ground, whatever. That could be a really awful experience. But are you willing to pay the price for that and then like just abandon real estate altogether over, having that property, building that equity, building that cash flow, and being able to, like reclaim your time and live the life that you want to, and like, not be stuck at a job that you don't like, and be happy, and, be able to go to like your son's games and stuff? Is that small problem worth, you know, I guess like your family's freedom and stuff, you know what I mean? Like, and your happiness and like super bigger picture. Like, I feel like, you kind of have to look at it that way,
I think that's
and
exactly how you look at it. I think that's the problem maybe for a lot of these people, is that they just think of real estate as that property, right? And obviously you've got to analyze a property
yeah.
and take care of that property.
Hmm.
But real estate isn't that property if you look at it the right way, in my opinion. I think you need to look at it as real estate. That property is part of your vision and your goal. And it doesn't need to be this complex vision. It can
No.
just be, I want to make an extra $2,000 a month so
Yep.
it can supplement whatever my car payment and my, I don't know, vacation for once a year or something, right? If that's your goal, right, that's a good enough goal. It doesn't need to be 10,000 units and $1 million a year in money, right? It doesn't need to be that. It can be whatever you want it to be. But if you have that, it's so much easier to drive through, like you said, those tough times, right? Like, because for me, even if I had to pull out a turd myself, right, from the toilet, right, which would be terrible, I would be gagging all over the place. But if that's what it took, right, because I have a bigger vision, like you said, right, I have a bigger goal, and it all feeds into that goal. And I think it's the why, right? That 3-letter word that people throw all around all podcasts and everything. And it's true what they say, but sometimes I get sick of hearing it because it's so repetitive. And it's true. There's nothing wrong with what it is. It's just that it gets thrown around so much. It's like it kind of gets watered down. But really, that's what it is the why to me just means understanding what you want and why you want that, right? Why it's so important to you and what does that mean to your life, that it makes everything else, irrelevant in real estate because of how important it is to you. And that's why you've got to find something that is really important, right? If you come up with a reason that's like, okay, yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's not that important to you. Well, of course, you're not going to be that driven, but you need to figure out what is really important to you and use that to drive you through some of the tougher times. Because there's going to be plenty of great times as well, right? It's easy to talk about the negatives, but there's plenty of great times as well, right? Stuff goes right and deals go right and renovation goes right and, you have great tenants and you're making money and your lifestyle is improving. It's just... there's plenty of positives.
Of course, man. I feel like that's super important. I feel like, not to kind of like beat a dead horse, but like, even if you tied a dollar amount to like what we were talking about earlier, like say, your toilet needs like, I don't know, like a $50 part or something, pulling something out of my ass here. But like, is that $50 part and like a couple hours of your time worth more than like the bigger picture? Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you actually like put these events into numbers, like just being able to, like watch your kids grow up and stuff and be there the whole time, and like is that worth less than a $50 pot and some frustration and a couple curse words? Like, I mean, it's I don't know. Yeah.
And there's for me as a parent as well now, I have an 18-month-old son. As a parent, there's also that extra layer for me as well, is what kind of example am I setting to my son, right? What am I teaching him? What am I, because believe it or not, and I'm realizing this more and more, unfortunately, is that kids don't do what you say, they follow your example, right? Way more, like my son is always copying me. He's always doing stuff that like I do, right? And when he starts speaking, I'm going to be in a whole world of trouble, right? Because he's going to just repeat the words I say. So I got to probably change a lot about that. But it's very repeatable. It's not very repeatable. They repeat what you do so much, right? They watch you every move you make, everything you do, and that's going to be continuous, right? And that's going to be the example that you set. So even showing to them, and it's not necessarily about the real estate and being wealthy. It's about me not willing to work a regular job and be miserable in that job and not want to provide and live the best life for myself, right? Because you can be a good example, or you can be a bad example, right? And I'm not saying that people that live that life are bad parents or anything like that. Not at all, right? They're just doing what they know and what they understand, right? It's not that they're trying to be anything else except good parents. And I'm not saying that for anyone who's listening. But I think you can, if once you have that realization, you understand that me investing in real estate and, hopefully living a great life from here on in and getting to these numbers and doing everything I want to do shows him like, wow, okay, there is another way, like, because I think we all get taught, right? And I think that's the issue, right, with all of this, right? It's not that anyone wants to work their job for the next 40 years and be miserable and live for the weekend and all that stuff, right, that we talked about before. It's just that you don't know any better. That's how the system is built, right? And I don't want to, like, I'm not like, I don't believe in the Illuminati and all that stuff, or, you know what I mean? There's not iguanas running the world or anything like that. But there is a system in place, right? And it makes sense that is a system like that because that's how the country needs to run, right? This is how things work. It's just, that's how it is. You don't get taught about real estate in schools. You don't get taught about entrepreneurial skill sets in school. You don't get to talk about a lot of this stuff, right? But if you are able to open your eyes and see out there and change the way you view things and understand some different things about life, you can also pass that on to your kids. And I think that's also a huge factor for anyone who has kids out there, is the example that you're showing them and leading them.
That's huge, man. I obviously, haven't really thought about that kind of thing, but someday
you will. You got plenty of time.
Someday I'm gonna come back on this and be like, oh my God, he was right.
Let's hope so.
Wow.
You'll be a multimillionaire by that point anyway. So,
hey, you too, man. Would you mind telling the story of acquiring your first property and any lessons that you learned from it? I know, we kind of got into it a little bit, but was there any like big lessons, I guess that you kind of were able
that
to pull
first
from that?
property, that first property for me was, I didn't buy it as an investment property. It was a house to live in. It was a house that I just liked the look of it. I didn't really,
Yeah.
even though I said my family were in construction and build stuff, I didn't understand the investment side of it at all, right? And I believed that the house that you lived in was going to be an investment, so I tried to look around for a good area, blah blah blah. But that was about as far as it go, right? At 25.50 is how much my mortgage payment was a month, and that's not really any kind of investment, any kind of philosophy or any kind of anything, right? But I loved the house, and I was making good money with WWE at the time, so I didn't even think about it, right? I was like, okay, I can afford this mortgage payment, let me get it. That's about as far as it goes. So that was definitely, going back, and I'm sure 99% of America, that's how they buy their property, right? Can I afford this to buy this house? Okay, I'm buying it. If I want to live there, if I love it. So that was definitely a lesson that going back, I would have obviously figured something else out, and I would have figured there was huge CDD fees and HOA fees. So that's really what drove up the monthly payment. I said I didn't even look into any of that. And then trying to find a tenant, I was like negative cash flow on that property then as well. I was like, I don't know, $200-300 negative cash flow every month because I was just needed someone to get in there and eat the chunk of that, because even then they're paying $2,200 or whatever it is, right? $2,200 a month. So it's, that in itself was painful and a learning lesson in terms of, okay, maybe I should look at that before I buy a property. But outside of that, wasn't too many lessons, because if nothing else, it got me into real estate. I think I bought that property and I had it, and we managed it from afar, and obviously we had good tenants in it. So when we moved to Las Vegas, we still had that property, and they would pay every month and take care of some little stuff here and there. So it wasn't huge learning lessons. I would say I would rather talk about my first multifamily property, a 6-unit that I bought in January of 2010, January 14th of 2010. There was a lot more learning lessons in that one. So just a few, for example, is that I learned that it's better to have 6 units than to be trying to, because it was essentially going to be a flip, and it still is. I haven't sold it yet, but hopefully we'll sell it pretty soon. But essentially the idea was to turn around the 6-unit, fix all up the units, increase the value, and either sell or do a cash out refinance. So with that, I also realized if this was a single family home, I would have been eating all the holding costs. I would have been eating the mortgage payment, eating the electricity bill, the water, taxes, insurance, all that stuff, right? Any repairs and maintenance. But because I bought multi-unit property, and there's only 6, so it's not a huge one, but I had tenants in there the whole time. I was just doing 1 or 2 units at a time. The other tenants were paying down everything else for me, so I wasn't losing money. I didn't essentially have any closing costs. So that was very attractive in itself. And just learning how to deal with contractors. The first contract that I had on there was kind of crappy. I just had a referral for someone, didn't really do much background check on them, and they did really crappy work. The guy that was supposed to be doing the work had outsourced it to some other people. These people, I don't know if they had any kind of construction background whatsoever. They had no idea what they're doing. So I kind of had to get someone back in over there and fix their work. And luckily I realized this early enough in the project that I was just able to fire them essentially and get someone else in. And it didn't cost me too much money to remedy that. But definitely with contractors, you want to, do as much checkup on them as you can, right? You want to make sure they are who they are. Look, if you can go to see some of their other work, get as many referrals as you can, have contracts in place if you feel like that's needed. Don't pay them up front, like all this stuff, right? And also have someone there if you're out of state that can go check on the work, ideally every week, if not every week, every other week, so that the work's being done as it should. So that was another lesson. There's been a ton of lessons. In terms of management, how to rent out the units, what kind of renovation to do, why and when, and just learning about operating a bigger property like this, because I had single families before, and it's only 6 units still. It's not 30, 40, 50 unit property, but still it's 6 tenants under one roof, so just learned a lot about that kind of stuff.
Wow, there's so much gold in there, man, especially about the contractors.
Contractors can be challenging, right? And if you go in there with being very suspicious of contractors, I think that's helps. And no offense to any contractors, but there are good ones out there. Definitely, I've got a good one right now, but there's plenty of bad ones as well, and you can get really burnt with that. So if you go there thinking that this contractor is going to screw me over, how can I protect myself against that? I think that helps a lot. I think that could really, you'll find ways to make it, figure it out, and to understand that if you have that thought process. Now, don't treat them badly, because they might be the good ones, right? But just have that suspicion, right? Have that suspicion of, right, these guys are going to screw me over. How can I protect myself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's crazy, man. That's so true. What are there like a couple things that you like to kind of ask contractors, like to kind of, I guess, like screen them a little bit, or how do you like to kind of?
There's quite a few things, I'd say, in my experience. So the first one, I got a referral, right, which was a good start, right, to get a good referral. The only thing with my referral was this guy had never used them. So he was the broker that sold me the deal.
Mm-hmm.
So he meant well. He was trying to give me the best contractor that he knew, but he's never used them. He doesn't do any renovation work. He's not an investor himself. He's just a broker who buys and sells deals. So that should have been in itself a bit of a red flag for me, right? If you're getting a referral, you want someone who's dealt with that person, right, firsthand, who has had them at the property, who's had them do good work, right? So it's almost like you have to vet the referral as well, right? You have to check out what the referral is, right? So there's that, I would say, right? And then it's good to talk to these people. You get a feel for who they are, and just in terms of, even if you do FaceTime or something, Zoom call, right, with people, it just gives you an idea for someone's personality, who they are, how they work, right? You can, ask them questions about previous work they did, what kind of jobs they do, right? Because that's another thing, right? It's kind of, I'm sure people have heard people talk about property management, right? You own a property management company that does the same kind of property that you're looking for them to manage. Well, it's the same with contractors, right? If they're doing high-end flips and you're looking to do a C-class buy and hold property, it's probably not a good fit, right? Because they're going to they're used to using these expensive materials to do this high-end finishes, and that's not what you want for a C-class property, right? You want it to be nice and clean and, tenant proof, right? But outside of that, you don't need granite countertops, you don't need quartz, you don't need all this expensive, you don't need backsplashes a lot of times, right? All this stuff, right? So it's important to understand that as well, right? And if you can, and if you're local to the area and you're there, or even if you're investing out of state and you're just visiting, try and take the time to see some other their sites if you can, right? If they have other work that they've done, you want to go and try and see that work if you can, right? Or the good thing is now, someone told me there's a website, I can't remember what the website is called, but you can pay, where you essentially go to find people that do stuff for you in another state. So if you need someone to go take some pictures or something, if you need someone to go view another construction site that these guys are working, you can have them go do that, right? You've got to pay them, obviously, but even if you pay someone $50 to go to another site and they tell you, oh my God, this place is a mess, the work is terrible, right? That's the best $50 you'll spend, right? That's probably the best $50 you'll ever spend. So you can do these things, so you can really vet them. Essentially, what it comes down to is take the time to really vet them, right? So another thing is as well, to find a good contractor, it helps is if you find someone that gives you that referral that has some kind of power over these people, that helps as well. So to give a real life example of what I mean by that is this company that I use, they work a lot with the property management company that I have. So they do a lot of work for them. So if they were to screw me over, the property management company who's managing my property probably wouldn't use them again, right? They would cost themselves a lot more money by screwing me over than if they just did all the work like they should with this property management company. So they had something to lose. So if you're able to set up a situation like that, where these guys, if they screw you over, they have something to lose. And that's a perfect example of, I think, something where it can be like that, right? Is or if you have a friend that does a ton of work, is a flipper, or someone that if these people care about their reputation, and you can try and find someone that cares about their reputation, I think that's a big deal, right? And it doesn't still mean that it safeguards you, but it just helps in that way. So
Yeah.
those are a few good things. I think if you go to David Green's book, the book on long
Is it the
distance
long distance real
long
estate
distance real
investment?
estate investing, or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, he has a ton of great tips, and I've heard him talk quite a few times about how he hires his contractors and what he expects from them, and he's really good as well. So that definitely listen to what he says, but just try and find out who these people are and how they work, right? And I don't mean do like a serious background check or follow them home to their house at night or anything like that. But find out what kind of work they do. Do they do good work? Do they have good referrals from them? You know, do they finish on a timely manner? Are they, are they quite cost effective? You know, are they clean and tidy? Like there's a ton of stuff, and you can, find out a lot of this stuff as well through, either yourself or through other people.
That's so true, man. I want to go back and kind of touch on the like people that care about their reputations. Like I feel like as big as real estate is, like a lot of people still know each other.
Yeah.
So if, like that contractor, that you used in the example, that works with the property manager that manages your property, like if they were to do something like that, like they're literally just kind of shooting themselves in the foot. Because then you go back and you tell, the property manager, like, hey, these guys did this, I paid them, and I didn't get, the outcome that I desired and that I paid for. Then, the property manager could be like, all right, we could just find somebody else that you guys can get out of here, off of one job. I feel like you're totally right. Like, it's such a big world, but I feel like it's such a small world too. And like a lot of people have connections to each other that, you might not know. And then, yeah, I mean, I feel like that's totally, a really big thing that is less talked about.
Yeah, well, if you can join local meetup groups as well, right? So if you're investing wherever in the area or out of state, if you join all these meetup groups in this area, you'll be able to get referrals from these people. Now, again, you need to vet it because you need to understand who's giving you that referral, why they're giving you that referral. But if there's the same name coming over and over again in a meetup group or a few different meetup groups, that's usually a good sign, right? That's definitely a good sign, right? And something else I would challenge people, I think, is don't let price be the only factor, right?
Mhm.
Because if you're going for the cheapest guy and the guy that's given the best price, and there's usually a reason behind that, right? And there's ways to make stuff more cost effective. You can hire handymen to do stuff that's unskilled work that you you know what I mean? You don't want to be paying someone $100 an hour that someone can be doing $20 an hour work for it, right? But you pay for what you get a lot of times, especially with contract. If you go for whoever is the cheapest, that might not equate to you saving money, right? You might have to get someone else to redo the work, or they might walk off with your money, right? Or whatever it is, right? Don't let just price be the factor that decides who you're going to use, because sometimes a more expensive one will work out cheaper because they may finish quicker, they might do better work, so you don't have to redo the work, they're reliable. Like there's so much more that goes into it. So don't let price, in my opinion, don't let price be the only factor in deciding what contractor you use. And I think that's a mistake I've had a lot of people make.
That's huge, man. That's super golden. Oh my God. It's so true. That's awesome.
And I can safely say my contractors are not the cheapest. that I know, but they do good work and they're reliable, and I'm happy with what they do. So I don't beat them. Well, I've tried to beat them up over there actually. The guy, I try to get him better prices, but he doesn't budge too much, so it's worth it.
Of course.
Yeah.
Wow. Moving on to our next question. What do you consider to be the biggest variable to expand your portfolio? Whether it be like networking or, marketing or running numbers or.
So essentially what you're asking is, what do you think is the most important to grow the portfolio? What is the most beneficial?
Yep.
Yeah. Networking is huge, right? Networking is a massive part of that. Maybe people are sick of hearing that as well, right? I remember starting out listening to podcasts and hearing the same stuff talked about over and over, and just people would say networking, and I was like, okay, well, how does that work? What do I do with that, right? And it's like
Yeah.
saying, you know what I mean? There's so much other like find your why. Okay, but how did I do that? What does
Now
that
what?
work?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right? So but networking for me has been huge. I think network because, and just to let people understand is like through networking, you meet people who give you these referrals, right? For example, contractors, right? So if you network with people, they're going to know contractors, right? Or even if they don't know contractors, they might be able to give you advice on how to hire contractors, right? Or they might know someone in another state that, you know, it's amazing how it works. And so what I would say is that, okay, networking for me has been huge. What I did was I started a podcast like you know, you get to, every time you get on an interview, you get a chance to network and create a friendship with someone and grow it from there. But, you know, everyone might be like, well, I don't have time for a podcast. Well, okay, well, you know, the cool thing is you've got so many Facebook pages, groups, whatever you want to call them, that you can be part of now. And we're all on social media way too much, right? I guarantee every single one of us is on there more than we should be, me included.
Yep.
But when you're on there, that's a chance for you to talk to people, right? If you see someone comment about something that you're interested in, just reach out to them on in that comment. Say, well, that's interesting. Can you tell me more? Or how does that work? All right. Or oh, I see you're in Las Vegas where I'm at. Like, is there anything I can do to help you? What can I do as a young and eager person? You know, and create those friendships, right? Networking to me is creating friendships.
Yep.
And the more friendships you have, the more ability you have to draw on these relationships and kind of maybe get them to help you, right? But you've also got to come from a point of, and I'm sure people have heard this a million times, is giving to them as well, right? The more you help people, the more they're going to want to help you. And it's just the way it is, the law of reciprocity, right? And the more, if you're always thinking about that, right? How can I help this person first? They're going to be more than willing to, because I love helping people. This may sound bad, like, but it comes from a genuine place. I love helping people because then they owe me. They're not that they owe me, but you know, then you don't have to feel bad about if there's any time that you need a favor for them. Because I feel like I ask people, and I do it in a good way. Hopefully, I build a relationship and they know it comes from a genuine place. But I don't know. I ask people for stuff, and I always feel guilty if I haven't given them something in return, or I've given them something first. So when I'm able to do something for someone, I love it, because then I'm like, okay, if I ever need to ask you for something, I don't have to feel guilty, right? And they probably say, hey, you don't need to feel guilty about asking me for anything, but at least if I've done something for them first, that's great, because then I have no hesitation about asking them, and I don't have to feel any guilt about asking them. So I just think, you know, the more you can help people, build those relationships, right? Be a good person. I think most people know how to be that, hopefully. Build relationships and just, you know, don't be scared to reach out to people. When I started my podcast, and I don't know about you, this is episode 24 now. I was scared to ask people to be on my podcast. I was like, why are people going to be on my podcast?
I feel you.
They're successful. Like, and you'd be surprised, right? Because for one, people want to share their story and help people with their podcast and help you, but what's people's favorite subject? It's themselves 99% of the time, right? People enjoy talking about themselves, right? So if you give them that platform to talk about themselves, they usually take you up on it. But people are a lot more helpful than people think. As long as if someone's successful and you reach out and say, hey, what should I do to be successful? I'm like, okay. Like, how much time have you spent? Much time have you spent thinking about that question? How much research have you done? Right? Like, there's a golden rule, right? If you're going to reach out to someone, can you Google that answer? If you can, don't ever ask it, because that's just ridiculous, right? You know what I mean? You get it all the time on Facebook. People post, what time does Walmart close? Or just do a Google search. Like, would have taken you quicker to do a Google search than it did to type up that Facebook post, right? And I'm not knocking people, you know, I'm just kind of joking with them. But if you're going to try and create relationships and you want people to try and help you, try and remember that these people that you're trying to get help from are usually successful, and they're successful for a reason, because they're busy, right? And most people are willing to give up their time as long as they understand that you're hungry for success, you're willing to work, you've done some research, right? You don't need to be the most knowledgeable person in the world, but don't just fire off a question like, hey, I want to be a millionaire in real estate investing. How do I do that? Okay, like it's probably 20,000 different ways I can answer that question. And for one, like, why would I answer that question, right? Because you've put no effort. Why should I put the effort when you haven't, right? So it's just these little things, I guess, in terms of networking, hopefully gives people an idea of how to think. And always, always, always try and help that other person first, right? Even if it sometimes comes from, and for me, it always comes from a genuine place. And I'm not just saying that because we're on a podcast or anything. Like, for some reason, I've noticed I enjoy helping people. I really do. I don't know. Maybe coming from the small town that I grew up in, everyone helped each other. Maybe that's what it is. But I genuinely enjoy helping people. But even if it doesn't, right? If you always look to help those other people first, it's going to stand you in good stead, right? Even if you're like kind of a crappy person, just do that. Just be everyone you're trying to connect with and be friends with and whatever. Just try and help them first, and try and think, what does this person need, right? Like, if people are listening to you or me now, right? We both have podcasts, right? If someone wants to help us, a simple way is go and write a 5-star review. I do that all the time when I'm trying to reach out to guests and I know they have a podcast. Perfect. I go give them a 5-star review, subscribe to their podcast, give them a great rating, and then I'll reach out and say, hey, I noticed you have a podcast, blah, blah, blah. I want to give you 5-star rating, wrote you a good review. I've subscribed to your podcast. We'll probably listen every week now from now on in. Who's not going to be happy with that? Who's not going to reply at least? They may say, hey, I'm too busy or whatever like that. But that's such a simple thing. And if you just think from that perspective, what does this person, because people also, I've heard this, and I learned this actually from other people because I was guilty of doing this. I reached out and said, hey, how can I help you? I'd love to help you in any way. Well, okay, I don't know. What can you do for me? I don't know what your skill set is. Can you knit me a jumper? Can you go build me a house? I don't know what you could do, right? If you just take, and if you can, everyone has LinkedIn profiles, everyone has Facebook profiles, everyone has Bigger Pockets profiles, everyone has YouTube content out there of some sort, right? Even if you're just being on someone else's show or on a podcast or whatever, just take the time. And it probably wouldn't take you more than 30 minutes to investigate this person, see what this person is up to, what they're doing, where they're investing in, and find one thing that you can maybe provide to them or help them with, or have any consideration whatsoever. Even if it's not necessarily helpful, the fact that you researched and did that work to find that out is going to make people a lot more receptive. So just keep that in mind. I think when you're networking, I think that's just an easy thing to try and think about.
It really is, man. And like, totally stemming back to your point earlier about, like, literally, like, if somebody has like a podcast or something, like, just giving them a ton of love, like, just to make them feel good, like, even if you don't get anything out of it, like, I feel like I totally, get where you're coming from, just from like genuinely helping people. Like, even if you don't get anything out of it, like, yeah, it's cool when you do get something out of it. But if you're not looking for that, once you're like literally just given value, like, it makes you feel good to give them value and make their day. And like, I feel like everybody's happy. You know what I mean?
It's if the world was like that, right? If you went out every day just to help one person and every other person did that, right? To help someone else in one way, tiny little way, right? The world would be so much better place, right? And I'm not trying to get philosophical or get deep or anything like that, but it's not a tough thing. It's not a tough thing, right? To just try and go and help people in some way whatsoever, right? And it could be whatever. There's 10,000 different ways to help one person, I'm sure, but just having that consideration and that thought set, I think helps.
Yeah, I really like what you said about like shooting to help somebody out first as well. I totally get what you're saying. Like, I hate to like be a burden like for people, you know what I mean? Like, even if it's no big deal, like if it's just a question or something, like I feel bad, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to bother them. Like, I know their time is like super valuable and everything, but like, if you help them out first, then I feel like there's kind of like something there, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I totally get where you're coming from.
Yeah, just find it, and there's always a way to help someone to do something, or just even sometimes giving them a compliment, right? Even if they have whatever it is, a book out or blah blah blah, say, hey, I read your blog. Your blog was awesome. I love how you talk about A, B, and C. This was really interesting. I'm actually going to take that on board. People write blogs for a reason, right? If you're just trying to understand people's perspective, right? Yes, they do it to sort of position themselves as an expert, but they took time to read that blog, to write that blog, right? And about that whatever subject, right? And if you're able to read about it, relate to it, learn something from it, and then relate that relay that to them and let them know how that blog can potentially helped you and taught you something, that's huge for them as well, right? So I think, there's just so many ways you can do that. It's just, I think what it is, it's just as simple as thinking about it a little bit. People don't think, hey, I need this answer to this question. Okay, let me just ask. Well, okay, there's nothing wrong with that. And you might get an answer. Yeah, there's more options. And also, if you do that, take the time to do that, to learn about this person and help this person or do something to create that relationship. Going forward as well, you've got more chance of having them help you in the future. Now, I'm not saying they'll become a mentor, but you might have another question in a month's time and they'll be more, willing to answer that question and help out at that point.
Yep. I feel like too I feel like it hasn't been easier to literally just give positive value with like social media and stuff in the day that we're in. I mean, you mentioned it earlier, like everybody's got 99.99999% of people have some kind of social media platform, right? And if they're putting out content, whatever it is, whether it's Instagram or, YouTube stuff or a podcast or whatever, like imagine how long it takes out of your day. Like if you see it in your feed or whatever, how long does it really take like to like their picture or something or, whatever, and give them like a little comment like, oh, you're crushing it, dude, keep it up, and like they see that light up on their phone and they're like, that's awesome. You know what I mean? Like somebody actually took time out of their day to, to keep me going and like, yeah, like literally just keep pushing people forward, and I feel like there's not enough positivity going on right now, not to be a philosopher as well, but I feel like it's in the day and age that we're in, it's pretty simple to just go out and give value, especially when people are putting themselves out there. Like you said, like people take time to actually, write those blogs and make those podcasts and, post those Instagram pictures and everything. Like show them a little bit of love, you know what I mean? Like you feel good by helping them out, like they feel good because you read it and, maybe learned something. And I feel like everybody's happy there, just because like you took 10 seconds out of your day to make them feel a little bit better.
Yeah, it really is that easy.
It's, yeah. Ooh, what is the most important lesson that you've learned over your career? I know we've talked about tons and tons, of super crazy, like priceless stuff already, but.
Yeah, for me, is waiting, being guilty of waiting. I don't think I have analysis paralysis per se, but of listening to economists, listening to people around you, and once you have that, and I think I don't know, I think I'm more naturally pessimistic, I think. So, I noticed this a long time ago is you pay attention and read and listen to stuff that meets you where you are, right? So if I'm scrolling through YouTube and I see, oh, the market crash is coming, I'm clicking on that because that's how my brain is thinking. Whereas someone who has an optimistic outlook, and it's not that I'm not optimistic in general, but I definitely have a little bit more of a cautious, pessimistic approach, I think, to some extent. Mm-hmm. Someone else scrolling through YouTube who has an optimistic outlook sees, real estate's going to go up 20% in the next year. They click on that, right? And I think is important. The lesson I've learned from this is because I'm naturally pessimistic, it's good to listen to optimistic videos as well, right? To balance it out a little bit. It doesn't mean that I follow either one but you want to listen to that. But the biggest mistake I made for sure is, or lesson learned, whatever is waiting too long. Like I've been in real estate now essentially, I don't know, since 2014, I guess, if you count that first property. It was a few years later before I bought my first investment property. But from there, I've been looking at multifamily quite a bit. And I've done a decent amount, and it's going to work out pretty well eventually. But I could have been a lot further ahead, I think. I was looking at multifamily here in Vegas in 2018, maybe end of 2017. And just because I thought, 10-year cycle, blah, 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 blah. There's going to be a crash soon, so I'm going to hold off. Had I bought then, right, the prices of stuff here in Vegas as opposed to 2018 is nuts. Stuff has more than doubled in 3 years, right? And I remember looking at properties that were 50, 55,000 a door at the time, thinking, wow, this is so expensive. And now they're over 100, 110, 100 and 120, 130 in some cases. So if I could have, from whatever money I had, have figured out a way to buy whatever I could have back then, I would have been so much further ahead. And even to looking at deals, because I invest in Cincinnati, even fast forwarding a few years, even to 2019, when I was looking at properties then, if I'd have bought everything I could have back then, 2 years later, I would have been sitting pretty now. So definitely don't wait. If there's a good deal now, the saying is don't buy real estate and wait, buy real estate. And don't wait to buy real estate and wait, right? And it's kind of true, but you've also got to be smart about it. But if a deal's a deal, right? If you're buying for cash flow and you're buying for longer term hold, if it meets all this stuff, if it's good cash flow now, if you can get long-term debt, if you're not buying in the hood, if you're not buying in bad areas, right? All these kind of stuff, now is a good time to buy, right? Especially with interest rates where they are now. So my biggest mistake is waiting too long to buy real estate. And I've bought plenty of real estate. I just should have bought twice as much or 3 times as much.
I feel like that's super valuable, man. I totally feel what you're saying at this point. I mean, given, the market is a little bit tougher right now, but like, I feel like there's always more that I can be doing. You know what I mean? Like, to always like just keep pushing for those opportunities. And I mean, people always have to buy and sell their houses. It doesn't matter if it's a buyer's market or if it's a seller's market. People are going to be moving in and out, and like, I mean, if you're able to catch them at the right time and everything, like, I mean, it's going to be a little bit more difficult sometimes than others, obviously, but yeah, just, just to keep buying and stuff like that is, it's crazy. Let me see here. Ooh, what is something that you thought about business, networking, or wealth creation that changed as you went along?
For one was going from single family to multifamily. So I always started out with buy and holds. Wasn't interested in wholesaling, wasn't interested in flipping or doing notes or any kind of other stuff. My goal was to create passive income, was to create that. And, cash flow essentially was the most important thing to me. So I figured out I needed 40 single family homes. It was just a calculation that I made.
Yep.
And I spoke to someone one day and they said, hey, you can buy a 40 unit property, right? And probably get to your goal in one deal. And I was like,
what?
Interesting. So then I started down that rabbit hole of multifamily and found so many other reasons why multifamily is, in my opinion, a better investment for what I'm doing. I don't want to say a better investment because everyone has different goals and different outlooks, but yeah, that was huge. Going from single family to multifamily was something that I think is going to create a lot more wealth for me.
That sounds like quite the game changer. It's crazy too, because all it takes is one person too, to mention that, and it could like totally change your trajectory and like put you on like a quicker path, I guess you could say. Like a more efficient path to get to the same spot just through, a little bit different of an avenue. Yeah, I totally agree, man. That's great.
Absolutely, man. Yeah.
What is your best piece of advice to new investors that want to start and manage their rental portfolio?
Okay, so we're going from a buy and hold standpoint and to, yeah, man, it's tough. I hate giving blanket statements because, do you know what I mean? Because it depends on people. Like, who is this person? Is he working 80 hours a week, or is it someone that's working 30 hours a week? Is it someone that wants to get out the rat race in the next year, or is it someone that's just buying to supplement his retirement? He's going to retire in 30 years. So I can give an overview. I guess I think it's good to manage yourself to start off with. I don't think it's a bad thing. Circumstances dependent on who you are as a person, because also some people are too soft to be their own property management, right? They're too nice. People tell the people that the dog has died 5 times in the last 5 months, and I can't pay because of this, but people are like, oh yeah, okay, I'm sorry to, and people are just too nice sometimes to do it. And you need a person in between you and the tenant to be that, not asshole, not to be rude, but to be stern and fair, right? Otherwise people will take advantage of you. So there's, but I think it's good in some ways if you could start out self-managing, because you learn a lot, right? And you might make a few mistakes here and there, but you'll learn what it takes and what it looks like and how that, managing of a property and managing of tenants work. So we managed 2 of our single family homes to start off with. My wife helped me a lot, but we did that to start off with, and also helps the cash flow a little bit, but I wouldn't let that be the determining factor. But you learn. So then when you do hire a property manager, you've learned and you've had that experience. But also, I would also say, maybe depending on who you are and how you feel about it, hiring a property management company is a great way to start, because when you start, that's when you're going to make the most mistakes. So when you have a property management company, you still learn about property management, and you can ask questions and you can be involved, and you can learn from them. And so you could even argue that it's better to start with the property management and then go manage yourself. But it's I'm trying to give both sides of the coin, because there is no one side of the coin, but there's always, and then you've also, like Kiyosaki said, there's the edge as well, so you've got to take that into consideration. But it's also good to have a property management company to start off with, because you can make some big mistakes to start off with, and you don't want to discriminate against tenants. There's all these laws now and legalities and legislation that you have to make sure that you follow, otherwise you can get yourself in trouble. And a good property management company is not only going to collect rents, because people think that's all they do, right? They're also going to have those years of experience on how to deal with tenants, how to screen a tenant. That's huge. If you don't know how to property screen a tenant, if you get the wrong tenant in, right? It's better to have the property sit vacant for 6 months than have the wrong type of tenant in there, because they will trash your place, cost you a fortune. So I would say, take in consideration who you are, what you're trying to achieve, what your lifestyle is, what kind of personality you have, how much time you have to allocate to this, and then from there decide, okay, if I think I'm a good fit for running this property myself, I'll self-manage to start off with. And if you're not, hire a good property management company and learn from them, and kind of go from there.
It's so true, man. It really is. I mean, not everybody is fit to like manage their own properties and stuff. Like you said, I mean, some people are, they just, it's a role, you know what I mean? Like, not everybody is fit to be, in kind of a leadership, kind of position, or, like a manager kind of position. And some people are going to handle things different than others. And it might be, wiser for them, to use a property manager. Or, people might be really good managers, but like scale is really big in their vision, so I mean, you kind of have to hire a property manager to scale, if you wanted to do something really crazy. And I totally agree.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
A last but not question, Barry. Do you read? And what is your favorite business, investing, or real estate book that you would recommend to anyone? Now, this could be like a podcast or something too.
Yeah, I don't read. I don't read that much. I read a good book actually a while back about apartment investing that people don't quote that often. So I'm sure there's a lot of Rich Dad Poor Dads and same kind of books on the Bigger Pockets books, which are all great. But what it's called, by a guy called Craig Haskell, and it's called How to Take Your Apartment Complex from Disaster to Something Else. Man, I can't remember. But that was a good book, because it talked about, it gave practical examples of how to fix issues that come up, right? And I don't mean about how to fix a broken toilet. I mean about if your property starts to go downhill.
Yeah.
What can you do to fix it? So I'm trying to find it here.
It sounds super interesting, though. I'm definitely
if you Google Craig, if Craig Haskell is the name of the author, you'll find it. If you put Craig Haskell apartment book, you'll find it, and it'll come up. But that was an interesting one. Business book. I don't say I read so many business book. I listen to tons of podcasts, and yeah. Obviously, Bigger Pockets is a good podcast. I love Rod Khleif has a good podcast. Joe Fairless, Whitney Sewell, a good podcast. There's one called Old Capital, which I really like. That I don't know people that know too much. If you're in the apartment investing space, it's because they're financing guys, so they're mortgage brokers essentially in the commercial space. So they talk about a lot of the lending side, and they're really smart, and they have great guests on. So that's another good one. Yeah, there's tons out there.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to check those out.
I wish I could give a better. Okay, here we go. Found it. How to Take an Apartment Building from Money Pit to Money Maker by Craig Haskell.
Ooh, that sounds amazing.
For real estate book. It's interesting for sure. Yeah, it might be a little dated, but I think the lessons in there are definitely applicable.
Yeah, it sounds incredible. I'm definitely going to throw that on my list and check out that other podcast podcasts that you were talking about as well. They sound great. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on here, Barry. It's always a pleasure to talk to you again, my man. And where can you be found on social media? You, the podcast, everything.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, man. It's always a good time to talk to you. Could have turned this into a 2 or 3 hour podcast. I'm sure.
I know.
Joe Rogan style, long form. Yeah, I noticed I was talking too much. It's like, my God, my answers go on for too long. But yeah, so thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. I'm glad you're doing this. This in itself, right, is going to lead you to success. I have no doubt about that. So congratulations on getting to 24 episodes. Just have another 24 more, and then get another 100 more, and then it's just gonna help you undoubtedly. No doubt about it. So I'm more than happy to be here, and I appreciate you having me on the show. Where people can find me is if you go to wrestlingwithrealestate.com, it has all my links. I've got a podcast called the WWRE podcast, which stands for the Wrestling with Real Estate Podcast. But if you go to the WWRE podcast, go on there. Check my podcast out. I've got a YouTube channel called Wrestling with Real Estate, but it's essentially just me rehashing out my podcast guests on there. But if you go to wrestlingwithrealestate.com, everything is there. There's also, for anyone who's interested in apartment investing, me and my friend put together a little guide on how to underwrite deals. So it'll pop up once you go into that site, to wrestlingwithrealestate.com. You can sign up there, and I'll send you I think it's about a 15-minute video on how to underwrite deals, because that was one of the biggest problems I had and challenges I had when starting out, was how to evaluate these deals, because a 5+ units is valued on the NOI and the cap rate. And it's important how to get to the NOI, which stands for net operating income. Is essentially your income minus your expenses, and it'll tell you what the valuation of the property. So I had trouble figuring out how to properly underwrite these deals and get to a proper evaluation. So we put together a video to help people as much as we can with that. So if they go on there, they can sign up for that.
That's amazing, man. Guys, go check out Barry's podcast. Give him a 5-star rating and a very nice review. Go check it out. It's a really amazing podcast. Please. Same to you, man. I don't even know what episode you're on now. You get so many. It's amazing.
Good question. One a day. Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. 150.
It's absolutely incredible. I love it so
today
much.
Today was 161. So
that's incredible.
Yeah, 161.
I love that.
So,
but yeah,
I enjoy it.
Thank you so much again, Barry. It really means a lot to me to have you on here, man. Keep crushing it, and yeah. We'll definitely talk soon.
Absolutely, man. Anytime. Thanks for having me, bro.
All right, guys. That concludes our Creating Wealth podcast episode for today. I want to thank every single person that has listened this far. It really means a lot to know that people can learn from me and with me as we build wealth together. Hopefully, you can take home at least one thing from this podcast that will improve your life just a little bit. If you could, please check me out on social. That's at Kyle Curtin Real Estate on Instagram, Facebook, and I'm on Bigger Pockets. Until next time, let's build together.